Good morning everyone, the fall has arrived here in Oregon and we've got one final guest for this series in the cul-de-sac.
How's it going, Mike?
Good. There's a surprise.
Welcome to the cul-de-sac.
Thank you. Feels different. Feels different being on this side of the camera. I don't know why, I'm a little nervous. It's easier behind the camera.
Isn't it though?
It is.
Now
yeah.
you know why those poor people.
I know, yeah.
So Mike, welcome to the cul-de-sac.
Thank you.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about your bike?
Okay, it's my pleasure. This is my 1956 Triumph T110, a Tiger 110, also known as the Super Sport. It's the T110 that immediately came before the Bonneville, which was the T120. And this has the single monoblock carburetor versus a dual carburetor on the Bonneville, amongst other things. It's a 650cc overhead valve Triumph parallel twin. It's also known as a pre-unit Triumph. What that means is that the gearbox or the transmission and the engine were separate. They never called them pre-units when they made them because they didn't have the unit by then, you know, but I've had the bike about 10 years and I got it from Central Oregon, here actually in the state. It was close to Eugene, which is a couple of hours due south of here. And it was one of those Sunday morning Craigslist ads that just popped up. And I was sort of looking tentatively and this bike popped up and I picked up the phone and I called this guy and jumped in my car and rode down there and we shook hands on it. I didn't have the cash, you know, I gave him a deposit. And then he brought it up on the back of his pickup within a couple of weeks. He wasn't a bike guy. He was into these Willys Jeeps, which I think are the American Jeeps that you see in all the movies. And he bought a Willys Jeep out of a shipping container, and this was also in the container. And it had been in the container for 30 years. It was a West Coast or a California bike. So when I got the bike, it had a California license plate, and the last tag on it was 1968. That was when I assume it last ran. And other indicators of a West Coast bike, a couple of things. It had the large Western or raised cow horn type bars and the gas tank. This is a smaller gas tank than you would normally have on an East Coast T110 and on the bikes from the UK. And I think the key difference is, well, other than it being smaller, is these knee pads. These are more like a cap that go over a plate that attaches to the gas tank. Whereas the larger tanks, they have a couple of screw holes or bolt holes and they're screwed to the plate that holds the tank on. But I kind of like it, the smaller tank. I believe it's quite rare.
So what did the bike look like when you got it?
It was complete, but it was pretty rough. It wasn't running at all. Yeah, it was a nut and bolt restoration, right down to the ground up. I think the only two things that I didn't restore were the Smith's chronometric speedo and this little switch here. Everything else has been touched in one way or another. It took about 2.5 years to restore it.
And then who did the paint work for you?
That's by Dave Wedlake. And so Dave's local here. We all know Dave in the local vintage community, but he's actually a world-famous, world-class restoration expert. So he did the paint. He not only repaired the mudguards or the fenders and the gas tank, but he also painted them as well. And the gas tank was in a right state. It didn't come with any of the badges, and they're on a little plate that's integral to the tank. And when Dave stripped the tank, it looked like someone had bashed in these panels here with a baseball bat and then filled it with Bondo or something like that, and then just painted over it in black. So they cut the bottom of the tank to get in and push it out, press it out, whatever, and then they repaired that. Similarly with the fenders, but they weren't as bad. They were repaired, and Dave fixed this, for example, the lip here on the front. And then the pinstriping was done by Mitch Kim as well, who's also local. He does amazing work. He's a sign writer and a painter and a finisher as well. So yeah, I'm very, very happy with the colour. This is called Shell Blue Sheen, and it's from Don Hutchinson, who is a real authority on the Triumph paints, has all the original paint codes and so forth, and so I'm pretty confident that this is quite authentic, the actual colour that the original bikes would have looked like. The cylinder head I think is 1959, but that Webco aftermarket oil cooler, that was already on the bike, and also the finned rocker cover caps as well. I like those very much. I felt that this was just something a little bit sportier, and it would have been done back in the day, you know, it would have been an aftermarket add-on. I suppose maybe the only other main difference is these handlebars. I added what they call these M bars or drop handlebars to the bike just to give it a bit more of an aggressive stance. It's a very pretty bike and I wanted it to look a little bit more aggressive. And also, I don't know if you've seen them, those old pictures of Percy Tate at the Thruxton Challenge races, and he's got those bars and racing plates, and you know, this is covered up with a plate. It looks fantastic, and that was my idea of making it look a little bit more dangerous. Yeah, so I got almost all my parts from Ace Classics in England. Kev and I, over 2 years, we sourced a lot of parts, but I also bought new old stock or NOS parts to try and keep it as original as possible. Engine wise, I had the barrel rebored to 60 plus, so that's it, that's the end of its life. And then had the dynamo reconditioned, the magneto reconditioned, the whole wiring I replaced and everything. Rebuilt the engine, the gearbox. There was some machine work that I couldn't do, of course I don't have the skill or the equipment. The carburetor is the original carburetor, and I think I'll probably have to change it at some point because it doesn't idle as well as I'd like. But I like the little stamp on the carburetor. It's a 376/40, which is specific to this bike. And so I wanted to keep that, but I think inevitably I'm going to have to change that carburetor and make it easier to start and idle.
Now, we haven't seen this bike in a lot of your more recent videos. What's this bike been doing and what's been going on with it?
I haven't ridden it very much, I'm ashamed to say, since the rebuild. And then the other bikes came along as well and got distracted with those. But you know, it's always my favourite, I must say, because I put a lot of sweat and time and effort and love into this bike. I think I'm most proud of the fact that when I first restored it though, I took it to the OVM Corvallis show, and it won the Dennis Fry Memorial Award. I was really proud of that. I never knew Dennis. He's very well known in the OVM, the Oregon Vintage Motorcyclist Club. A lot of the guys still in the OVM speak very highly of Dennis, and so it was an honour to have that award. And then more recently, in 2017, the bike was in the Portland One show. That was great fun, because they don't usually cater for the vintage bikes, they're usually off to one side. But that year, they were all over the floor, and it was magic. That was a really nice experience.
How does this compare to the other bikes you have?
Oh, that's, it's like choosing your favourite child. It's different. It's a really attractive, dead cool bike. Sometimes I wish it was just like an original T110 and I'd just ride the heck out of it. I tend to spoil it a little bit, I must say. It's very nice to ride. It's light, torquey. It sounds brilliant. I love the sound of it. It sounds awesome. But compared with the Commando, for example, the Commando's really robust. It's my go-to bike, no doubt. The Commando, you jump on, you kick it, it's hard and aggressive and, you know, tons of fun and heavier, no doubt. It's brilliant, you know, the Commando is a brilliant bike. And then the Vincent is, you know, it's special, it's mechanical, it's heavy for sure until you're on the road. You know, there's a different kind of feel riding the Vincent. It feels definitely older, which it is, you know, it's technology that's older than this, or certainly the Commando. But they're all great in different ways, yeah. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this little mini-series from the cul-de-sac, guys. It's been a phenomenal success. It's been like a breath of fresh air, to be honest, over the summer, and especially during this time. It's brought some sanity, certainly into my life, and I've really appreciated all the visitors and getting to know them and seeing their brilliant bikes. So this is the last video in the series for this year anyway. What we might do is we might do some home visits, as I call them, and go out and visit some friends and talk about their projects, which is probably what we'd expect to do over the winter anyway. And then maybe we'll resume in the new year once the weather improves again, and if we find opportunities elsewhere as well, we may take them. But for now, I hope you've enjoyed it, and thanks again for all your great comments and your engagement with this little mini series. Really appreciate it. Take care of yourselves. Okay, see ya.
Thanks for coming over.
Thanks a lot, Dave. I'll see you later. Wait a minute, I live here. Thanks guys, see ya. Thanks very much for watching guys, this has been another tale from the cul-de-sac. Please remember to subscribe and click the little bell and you'll get a notice whenever I release a new video, usually every Sunday morning and sometimes during the week.